Hello and welcome to another edition of the Full Force News Burst, brought to you by GeneralsJoes.com, with me as your host, Chris 2020 McLeod, aka Diagnostic 2020. Joining me today to discuss the news that Hasbro CEO Brian Goldner has confirmed that the Snake Eyes movie will be coming out in 2020 is Justin, definitely not March, Bell. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this news burst. Yesterday, Hasbro CEO Brian Goldner confirmed that the G.I. Joe Snake Eyes movie will in fact be coming out in the year 2020, speaking at the 35th Bernstein Strategic Decisions Conference in New York. Yes, that classic conference that we have discussed before in the past. Mr. Goldner, using the same presentation slide from Toy Fair earlier this year, didn't go into great detail, but did say, next year we'll have a G.I. Joe movie focused on Snake Eyes. This could just be talk to keep everyone happy, and 2020 could definitely still be in their sights, but realistically, with no cast or filming date on the horizon, we are still probably looking at a further delay. Having said that, Justin, positive words coming out of the Hasbro camp at least, are they putting too much pressure on themselves to be pushing for 2020?
I think probably a little bit. I mean, especially if they're not going to... I'm imagining that they've got to be targeting like Christmas 2020 or something like that. If they're not even filming for another few months, not even starting filming for another few months, haven't even announced the cast and all that stuff. We took a pretty close look at like the timeline for Bumblebee, I think, and kind of broke down how long it took from each announcement. Wasn't it like it was a full year from when the cast was announced before the film was released, which I guess still gives them half of 2019 to announce the cast and get things rolling, I guess. But yeah, it just seems like that's kind of a tight timetable to be filming and casting and post-production and all that stuff.
So with that said, do you think there'll be less CGI, shorter filming schedule? And if so, if that is the case, does that worry you at all for the quality and the outcome of the film?
Well, based on what they've mentioned as the format, it doesn't concern me a whole lot. I mean, if they truly are going for like an old school 70s kung fu kind of style, I don't know if they need a whole lot of CGI for that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that doesn't worry me a whole lot. If they start getting into more modern G.I. Joe stories, then that would concern me a little bit. They're not giving themselves enough time for kind of the cooler CGI stuff. I like the idea of kind of the 70s sort of kung fu style thing for the Arashikage on one hand, but on the other hand, each Hollywood blockbuster these days needs something to separate it from the crowd, and I'm just not sure, going old school, gritty, no CGI, kind of back to basics sort of thing is going to do it for Snake Eyes. But if that is truly what they're doing, then the short timetable might not be such a big deal, and the post-production stuff might not be such a big deal.
Will you believe it when you see movement on the other factors that aren't in place yet, like
yes,
principal photography,
I'll feel
casting,
a lot more. Exactly. Any of these announcements and things, I'm going to feel a lot more confident about once we've actually got cast announced and set photos coming through and things like that. Because I mean, I'm not sure what the tentative release date is for the Black Widow solo movie, but we're already seeing set photos of Scarlett Johansson kind of being filmed on set, and they're obviously actually doing things for that film already. And I don't know if that's a 2020 release or not, but it still seems like there is a lot that hasn't been revealed or hasn't been talked about or hasn't been decided yet that makes me pretty worried about kind of how they're approaching this.
The fact that there aren't even any, I suppose, rumors coming out of who could be Snake Eyes, like that for me is just kind of goes to show that either they're being super secretive about it, which is possible, but it's more likely that they just haven't done any casting yet, which is remarkable when you think about the fact that this film needs to be out in like next year. Yeah,
it's almost unbelievable. I mean, but yeah, I would agree with you 100%. It's clear. I think it's pretty clear that they don't have a cast. I mean, if they had a full cast already set, they wouldn't just be able to up and move filming, several months, because they would have to rearrange everybody's schedule. So I think it's pretty clear to me that they really don't even have a cast yet, which... so I don't know how they're going to do auditions and casting and script doctoring and filming and post-production and all that stuff in 18 months. I mean, I don't know.
Well, we'll see soon, I suppose, but
yeah,
I hope. And obviously, the announcement is only Brian Goldner saying, or the confirmation is only Brian Goldner saying it's not even off the cuff, but it's like, we will be having a G.I. Joe film next year.
Correct.
Now, if that to me just sounds like he is towing the company line. Do you know what I mean? That doesn't sound necessarily like he has any in that this is definitely happening at this particular juncture and they've got a date in mind. It's just him saying what has been said the whole time. And even with the delay, they were still saying 2020. No one was changing that year date.
Right. Yeah, I don't even know if I would put a whole lot of stock into this whole... I mean, it was an off-the-cuff statement at kind of a strategic planning conference that, honestly, it's...
35th. It's the 35th Bernstein strategic...
Oh, it's not just any strategic conference. That's a good point. It is the 31st Bernstein...
I'm gonna make sure that I'm at the 36th. Strategically planning the full force's next 20 years. And that's hopefully we should have our next audio episode out roughly around the same time G.I. Joe the movie appears. Something we haven't really gone into detail with so far with all these stories regarding the film are the action figures. Does this mean Hasbro are working on product at this point, and what do you expect that to look like when we actually get closer to release? Yeah,
I've been thinking about this a lot actually and trying to figure out kind of what formula they're going to use, because obviously if you look at any of the Marvel stuff, it's pretty junky, low-budget 10-inch or 12-inch figures, then pretty junky, low-budget 5-inch figures, and then pretty decent, neat-looking 6-inch Marvel Legends style figures. And then you look at Star Wars, though, but Star Wars has still maintained all their 3 3/4 / 4-inch figures alongside the Star Wars Black stuff. So I would think, given G.I. Joe's history, I would suspect they're going to stick with that kind of 4-inch scale, and maybe they'll pair it with some 6-inch more deluxe stuff. I guess we'll wait and see. But obviously there's going to be some. Hasbro, this is G.I. Joe is Hasbro's baby. It's their in-house brand. The whole reason to do these movies is to get visibility for the brand so they can produce product that people are going to buy in stores. So they're going to do a movie. They're going to do toys for the movie. It's just, what quality the toys will be is another question. It would be difficult for me to see them doing a 2009 revisited where Rise of Cobra had hundreds of action figures and vehicles and all that stuff. It's going to be pared down from that.
Totally, yeah.
But it may be something similar to G.I. Joe Retaliation. I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe I'm hoping they'll be able to retain the level of detail and articulation. I think they're pretty...
Do you think there'll be parts reuse?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. I don't think it'll be just a repaint line. I'm sure there'll be some new stuff, but they've got a huge library of existing tooling. I'm sure they will be dipping into that to reuse some of that throughout this line, however it shapes out.
Could you see them going the 6-inch route as well? Because obviously that was a rumor that cropped up a number of months back. In fact, probably last year, I think we talked about that.
Yeah, I could certainly see them doing some 6-inch figures. That seems to be kind of their new golden goose, so to speak. They're doing it with Marvel Legends, they're doing it for Star Wars, they're doing it for Power Rangers. So, it would seem to make sense that they would at least reserve some of that for G.I. Joe. Plus, it's it's a form factor that G.I. Joe has not been done in before. And so it's kind of it could be seen as a fresh new line, where they're kind of relaunching this Power Rangers 6-inch line as some kind of deluxe collector-focused line. Even though Power Rangers have been on retail shelves nonstop for the past 20 years, Hasbro is kind of using that as a platform as a quote-unquote new iteration of Power Rangers toys that are more classic themed. And I could easily see them, especially with their focus on Star Wars Black and Marvel Legends, I could easily see them doing that for G.I. Joe.
And do you also expect a water park playset to be made?
Absolutely.
I'm actually thinking that would be really cool now. You could have your Joes sliding down water slides and stuff like that. That'd be really neat. But I knew that was just a joke. I don't think there's going to be a water park playset somehow. Justin, thanks for jumping on. I really appreciate it, bud.
Sure. No problem. My pleasure.
That's it for this instalment of the Full Force News Burst. Thank you to my awesome co-host, Justin Bell. See you next time, and as always, Full Force. Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on Twitter @TheFullForce, liking the Facebook page facebook.com/TheFullForce, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on either of those platforms with feedback or questions. We have also started a Patreon page, so if you want to see your name up in lights on these videos or enjoy exclusive bonus content, then check out patreon.com/TheFullForce podcast or click the link on any of the posts this podcast appears in. Full Force.